I'm Vicki Hogarth and welcome to Southwest Magazine. My guests today are Sharon McGladdery and John Castell of Charlotte Dial-A-Ride. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for inviting us.
It's our pleasure.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit today about your new acquisition of a van that has wheelchair access, but I'd love to just get a background on Charlotte Dial-A-Ride for people who might not be familiar with your group and what you do.
Well, we need to give credit to the Fundy Community Foundation, and it was Leslie Cuthbertson who was executive director, and in order to identify the needs of Charlotte County, organized a number of community dialogues. One was looking at what are the needs of the seniors, another was looking at youth and children and what are the needs there. And out of a number of the dialogues, one of the things that came up in every dialogue was the need for transportation and the difficulty with people who don't own their own car, can't afford their own car, or can't afford to be paying for taxis.
Okay, and it's volunteer-based, so how does that work and how do you get people in the community involved?
Well, that's why we're here. Since Fundy Community Foundation started Dial-A-Ride, we've grown quite a bit, and we rely completely on volunteer drivers. They use their own vehicles, and they go through a background check and then volunteer their time at their own schedule. And we have an office staff that are incredible, Dana Planetta and Jeannie Carter. And Jeannie's the dispatcher, and she matches the members' drive needs with volunteer driver availability. And this is for all different needs for drives. We've actually noticed quite an evolution from when we started. John was mentioning seniors, and a lot of that was for health appointments, but we're seeing more and more demand from people that need drives to get to work, to education, training as well. And so that's changed the dynamics, and the more volunteer drivers we have, the more flexibility we have to adapt to those needs.
And I know I did say volunteer-based, but there is compensation in terms of insurance, in terms of gas, so it doesn't, there is some of that. Can you explain how it works?
Right, they're volunteers, so they don't get paid for their time. Okay. But there is a per kilometer refund to them for their use of the vehicle to cover the cost of the gasoline. A little bit may go help with insurance or other things that they need. They also, in order to be a driver, we need to protect our members who are being driven. So you need to supply a driver's record that you get from Southwest New Brunswick, and you need to have an RCMP security check. And if there is a cost associated with that, and Dial-A-Ride is prepared to cover those kinds of costs for the volunteer driver.
We take good care of both the volunteer drivers and the members using our service. There's an oath of confidentiality, as John mentioned. You know, everybody's privacy is important, but also respect. So we look for volunteers who are people, want to meet new people, have a clean driver's license, and don't mind volunteering some time and some distance to getting people from A to B. And another thing about this is it's a wonderful way to get to know people in your community, because some of the drives are repeat drives, you know, 2 or 3 times a week, and you get to meet and know people, which is a treat if you're new to the community or you don't get out much.
So I had a friend who moved here from a city and used Dial-A-Ride because she was diagnosed with an illness, didn't have her own car, and it was life-changing for her. It enabled her to stay here. She thought she might have to move back at first until she found your organization and was able to get to St. John, and she had to go quite often. So I'm wondering how membership works for people who might want to use it, whether it's for appointments and sometimes regular appointments that you might have once, twice a week, or for, say, work, where I know, John, you've had opportunities where you've driven someone almost 5 days a week for a job. So can you talk a little bit about, if you wanted to use it as a service, how would you approach it and get involved?
Well, if you want to get in, if you need the transportation and you can't afford a car, don't have a car, or can't afford a taxi or can't find a taxi, then you become you phone 466-4444 and talk to our staff at the office of Dial-A-Ride. And to become a member,
it's a simple membership for $5 a month,
okay,
or $60 a year, which gets you on the registry, and anytime you need a ride, you phone the office. They put in your time and A to B logistics and then match you up with the volunteer drivers. And actually there's a new program that we got funded last year,
right,
which is wonderful for dispatch because it allows the match up. And volunteer drivers can actually access that to see what rides are being asked for where.
Okay.
And say, that's fine for me, I can cover this, this, and this.
All right.
So that's what you get for membership. And then there is a small fee for people using the ride depending on the distance they're being taken.
Yeah, it's $5 a month or $60 a year to be a member. Then you pay a distance fee. For instance, to go to St. John, it's $45 to up and back.
Okay.
Or to go to St. George or St. Stephen from St. Andrews, or between the different municipalities, it was $8 each way. Because the gas price has gone up, it's gone up a little bit, and I should remember exactly what number it is.
Yeah, so, and John had mentioned the volunteer drivers, we pay 40 cents a kilometre,
okay,
to help with wear and tear and gas. But the membership, that's how it works, and it can be anybody, you know, anybody that has a need, occasional or regular, as you mentioned, John's service at 6 a.m. 5 days a week, you know, as one story, can access Dial-A-Ride for that purpose. And having said that, you know, we are getting more and more known, thank you, CHCO. So we're getting more and more members. Currently we have about 200 members and 24 drivers.
Okay.
And we operate pretty well full-time 5 days a week, servicing member needs.
And
so.
is this something you could do? Let's say you're not retired, you work every day, maybe you commute to St. John. Are you able to call Dial-A-Ride and say, hey, I leave every morning at 7 a.m. Could I possibly take someone? Is that a possibility?
That's a perfectly good scenario and would be very convenient for us and for that person.
Yeah.
It don't have to be going to St. John. If you're going from Black's Harbor or you're going from St. George to St. Stephen or back every day, and we have people who live across communities that we're driving now, but if you're going anyway and you're going to work, you can become a volunteer driver, and you can then get 40 cents a kilometer to be going to your work.
That would be a good way also too, I guess.
So it benefit to the person who's working but driving that distance, and benefit to Dial-A-Ride because it's the driver. And especially now during the coronavirus period of time, we can't take multiple people in the car. So we have to abide by the provincial health regulations. So we all wear the mask. We have a sneeze guard between the front and the back. We can't have a passenger in the front. And you can only have 2 people in the back if they're in the bubble. So if they're going to the same place and working, we can take 2 people in the back. Otherwise, it's 1 passenger per each trip. So that dilutes our ability with the drivers we have. So any way we can get extra drivers is going to help out, especially during coronavirus, but also because the word about Dial-A-Ride is getting out, and there's increasing numbers of people who are looking to become members. And if we have more members than we have drivers to service, that becomes a problem too, which is the problem we're getting towards now. Some drivers are driving, you know, up to 20 or 30 trips a week.
Wow.
And that's like a full-time job almost.
And this reflects a recent interview you did with Eastern Charlotte Waterways and Project Village. The need is definitely out there, and because we're volunteer-based, we just really want to encourage people to think of this. As I said, it's flexible, it meets your own schedules. If you're working and there's an overlap opportunity there, as a volunteer driver, that would be excellent. And you get thanks as well as the mileage compensation, so yeah.
With Project Village, this is a new initiative. It's in Black's Harbor. Eastern Charlotte Waterways is doing it. It's sort of like, I I want to say a pilot project to deal with the housing crisis and transportation needs, but I know that they're leaning a little bit on your services. They will have rental electric cars, I think, that are part of a new housing development, but they're also leaning into Dial-A-Ride to see where your demand is, because you know, obviously, you've been doing it for so many years.
We're very complimentary, and we're looking forward to working with them as they roll out their program, which is the electronic car-based program, which is an on-demand service, whereas ours is a volunteer driver service. So theirs is the driver will take the car. So it's slightly different, but it does still feed into the same community needs for transportation. And theirs is wonderfully based in the electronic reduce your carbon footprint objective, whereas we're dealing with the current situation of combustion engines, volunteer vehicles in most part. But we're looking forward to that direction to the future in reducing carbon footprint. And as John mentioned, with COVID, where we can't pool, some of our members that are going in the same direction, we're looking forward to when this is over and we can relax a bit to, again, sharing more, having one volunteer driver do more than one client, more than one member's drive.
I think that what you do does offer people at home, if they are looking to be more environmental, by putting someone else in your vehicle, not only would it compensate you a little bit financially if you're driving a long distance, but it's the original carpooling lane of cutting down on how many cars are on the road. So.
And also how many cars a household needs.
Right.
If you've got one car dedicated to work and somebody else in the household needs to go somewhere, Dial-A-Ride can help with that.
And Dial-A-Ride, just for people who might not know the area you service, how far do you go?
We cover all of Charlotte County, and because of the need medical-wise for hospital and other services that are available in St. John and not in St. Andrews, then we will take members to St. John as well.
And that includes Deer Island and Grand Manan as well. So, we do have volunteers on the Isles as well.
And just because you have been around so long, I love to give people an idea of the need. You are so well versed in where the needs and what the needs are, and obviously with so many more people moving to New Brunswick during COVID, the need is probably going up. But how many rides have you done, and where do they take you?
Well, since we started, we've done over 80,000. And roughly in a year, for the last 10 years, it's been 5 to close to 7,000 rides a year. So that's the amount of rides we do. Distances vary, obviously, for that. But that's basically the usage, and we see that going up. So that's where we stand right now, and that's for everything, like I mentioned, work, education, training, health services. We've also helped with grocery deliveries for people during the COVID crisis, similar to Kiwanis and St. Andrews. And that was, so we didn't actually see a slack off during COVID on the demand on our services. They actually went up a bit. So that's basically what we do in a year, and we try and operate on a 5-day week for the most part, and again that's to accommodate volunteer drivers and their schedules. So.
And our office is only open Monday to Friday.
Okay.
So you can't phone in. In fact, it's also important to note that the member, we're asking them to call at least 48 hours prior to the drive they want, because our volunteer drivers don't just drive, they're not taxi drivers, they have a life. So we need to find a driver and ask them soon enough for them to plan their days that they will be able to do the drives they need to do.
One of the nice things about our database that I just mentioned, the new dispatch service and tracking, is we are now getting a good feeling for the logistical base that is driving our need for drives. And that's being of use to the province and their Economic Social Inclusion Committee that's looking at the changing demographic needs for transportation.
Right.
And Southwest New Brunswick, Charlotte County is leading that. They are complimenting us on the amount of data we have and generate, and it's robust and good for evolving community needs.
I'd like to go back to the Project Village car share or car program, electric car program, in that there's another opportunity that might be there. If you're looking to drive, but you don't have a car, you have a driver's license, and you want to help people, then here's an opportunity, because the electric car will be available that through the partnership with the Project Village. Then we can match up that you can have the opportunity to use their car as a driver and drive someone who needs a drive, perhaps.
And I like that the way you said it, if you want to help someone, because I've seen what you do change people's lives, and I think both of you as drivers have seen that too. Can you tell us any stories about how you've seen the impact of Charlotte Dial-A-Ride take someone's, I've seen it allow people in rural New Brunswick to stay in their homes, which is obviously such a huge thing, especially when there's an aging population. In the case of my friend, she was younger, she just didn't have a car and thought she was going to have to move to a city to make her appointments, and she didn't have to. So I've seen it firsthand, and it's very moving. I won't cry. I'll let John tell us a little bit about lives he's seen change.
I've been with the program since the dialogues that Fundy Community Foundation had organized, and I was among the team of many people who got together after that and decided, yes, we'll go ahead and do a Dial-A-Ride program. It took us 2 years to go from that to set up, but during, that's 16 years now, I've been driving people all over Charlotte County up to St. George. Now we have people who have to go for dialysis maybe 3 times a week to St. John. And to take them up, and then it's about 5 hours to get the dialysis done. But the difference that makes in their lives, and it's keeping them alive. And that makes you feel real good in your heart that here I'm providing something for someone who desperately needs this just to stay alive, but has difficulty if we didn't exist. And so it's rewarding that way. And someone who was living on social assistance and found out they could get a job working at a fish plant, had to be 12 hours, so they had to be at work at 6 a.m. and picked up at 6 p.m. And in a way, it was a pleasure to get up at 4:30 in the morning, have my breakfast, be at that person's residence to pick them up, take them to the fish plant for the work, and then at 6 o'clock to be there and pick them up and go back. I'm retired, so I got time. And that was rewarding in that person then was able to have enough security that they could buy a car of their own. Then they would be able to carpool with other people as well to the plant, because they knew what it meant to be able to get there and have the job.
So no matter how small the drive, it can go a long way.
And yeah, and mental health being so important, staying where you live and in your community must make such a huge impact on people's lives. You also now have a van. I know you're still doing some fundraising efforts for it, because it was an expensive investment, but you will be now changing the lives, and I believe you've already started to, of people that need wheelchair access.
Yeah, over the years we've taken people that were wheelchair bound, and they have to have a portable wheelchair that you can fold up and put it in the back of the car, which we have to have. You have to help them be able to get into the car because their mobility is limited, and sometimes they have to have an oxygen tank while they're traveling and everything else. When they have their own wheelchair, and one of the electric ones now, with the wheelchair van that we have, they can drive right up a beautiful retractable ramp, come up and locked in place. They've got their seat belt there, and it's a very comfortable ride. Then they can drive with their electric wheelchair off or be pushed off. It's so much easier. And yes, we took someone up to St. John for some dental work.
It was the first official, and
that was our first official drive, and it was so nice. And even the courier came and sent a reporter and took pictures of him wheeling his wheelchair.
This was a wonderful opportunity that came to us just earlier in the year, February, March, where there was a couple that had started to use Dial-A-Ride as a service because they could no longer drive their vehicle. And they had this vehicle, and they very kindly offered us the opportunity to purchase it. and it was in fantastic condition, low mileage, and we've been looking for a safer way to transport anyone in a wheelchair, you know, somebody who's broken a leg, or, you know, right through to full-time wheelchair users safely. So this was just a fantastic opportunity. So we're in the middle of a fundraising drive for this. I keep using drive. And we have been given the opportunity by the J.T. Clark Family Foundation to, if we meet a target, that they will match the funds, which will really, really help us not only purchase the vehicle outright, but also make it fully operational and safe. And the other wonderful thing about it is it's a Class 4 driver's license, so it's a regular, no, Class 5 regular driver's license. So any of our volunteer drivers can drive it. So it's, you know, it's a Mustang chassis and a V8 or something.
So then that's good for members to know too. If they call Dial-A-Ride to book a drive, they can request the.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the fundraising efforts if people want to get, or if they can just donate? Sometimes I think just giving a donation is easy too.
Well, we recently had a lovely fundraiser that Europa set on. It was 2 evenings of beautiful fine dining, 4-course meal. And everyone who came to that dinner paid $100 for their dinner. 60 of that went to Dial-A-Ride. And the nice thing is that 60 gets matched by the J.T. Clark Foundation, Family Foundation. So
we've had fundraising dinners. We have a roast beef dinner at the Masonic Hall in St. George on Saturday, and all the tickets for that are sold out. But we also have a beautiful quilt that one of our board members made, and that's a raffle ticket situation. We do accept any donations, you know, from $1 to thousands. That could be made to the office directly, or if you bump into us in the street, I accept a check on the street, that's fine. And we're also going to be having an online silent auction.
Okay.
That will be running early October, where we'll post all the wonderful donations we're getting from individuals in the community, businesses as well, on the website, and they'll be shown for about a week, and then there'll be a week for bidding.
Okay.
And that will pretty well take us to the end of the campaign. Our goal is 20,000. That's what we're hoping to raise, and that's what our target is. So anybody that can help with that, thank you.
So, and the best place to go, I want to say too, not just for donations or to do the silent auction, but let's say you want to volunteer or use the service. Is your website the best place to visit?
Yes.
Or the phone call.
Okay. Or the office, yes.
4444. Or you can Google Charlotte County Dial-A-Ride, and it'll take you right to our site.
To the website, yeah.
Okay. And what's the future of Dial-A-Ride? Do you have bigger plans, a bigger expansion of service?
Oh, I've got dreams.
His dreams are bound by the number of volunteers we have.
It would be nice to be able to have a minivan, you know, like a 12-passenger bus. I know some of the Dial-A-Ride programs in Nova Scotia do have, in order to take people from like Kings County into Halifax, that sort of thing. We don't have a bus system between our Charlotte County and St. John or Fredericton. And it'd be nice to see that come somewhere, and it may be from Dial-A-Ride, or it may be another organization coming up, like the Project Village people are doing with the electric car.
Yeah, and we've been talking to other people too that have a vehicle like that we could use from time to time. Again, we have to juggle that with our volunteers having the right driver's license when you get to a multi-person carrier. But that's, yeah, it would be nice in the future for people that are all going the same direction at the same time, as opposed to individual drivers for all that.
What I love about living in Southwest New Brunswick is it's often the grassroots organizations that find the needs and find the solutions. But I do love that you've been so successful at what you do. You've become models for other communities. The government's looking at what you're doing just to see where the needs are. Are you overwhelmed sometimes by what you've created and how it continues to grow?
Oh, yes.
It's a good overwhelmed, though, you know. It'd be nice if we didn't need it, but to know it's a really nice networking.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed by just the generosity of people in Charlotte County. My wife and I were planning to go back to Nova Scotia and have a nice little farm in the Annapolis Valley after I retired from work. And the sorts of things like the Fundy Community Foundation, doing the dialogues and finding the needs, and so many different organizations here that are helping others. We work with the Charlotte County Cancer Society, for example, and they help their members by paying the costs for trips to St. John for the chemotherapy or other treatments like that.
That reminds me too, because if we circle back to memberships, we also have institutional memberships.
Okay.
Forgot to mention that.
That's right.
So for the Cancer Society, you were saying things like that.
Or some of the elder residences.
Okay.
And organizations are looking
That's right.
at dial-a-ride for that. So there's a fee for the institute as opposed to individuals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like the Volunteer Center in St. Stephen is an institute member, and they can book rides for people that are either coming to the food bank for food, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned so much today, and thank you both for doing what you do, and I hope that from doing this show that a lot of people at home get involved or become a user of this service.
Thank you.
So much.
And if you want to be warm in your heart and you want to help people, and you have a driver's license and you have a car and you've got spare time, think about becoming a volunteer driver.
Well, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, John. My guests today have been Sharon McGladdery and John Castell of Charlotte Dial-A-Ride. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.